This episode is brought to you by Pepsi Wild Cherry. Pepsi Wild Cherry is bursting with delicious cherry flavor and a sweet, crisp taste that gives you more to go wild for. Getting wild may look different these days, but whether it's opting for a solo Friday binge watch or a big night out, everyone can indulge in their wild side with Pepsi Wild Cherry. Also available in Zero Sugar. So grab a Pepsi Wild Cherry and get wild.
Why take one vacation with the family when you could take all of them? With Royal Caribbean, you don't just go to the beach. You visit a private island and race down the tallest water slide in North America. You don't just go for a road trip. You ATV and zip line through the jungle. You don't just go somewhere new. You rappel down waterfalls and discover ancient temples. Because this isn't just any vacation. This is all the vacations. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
The Love Affair event is on at Whole Foods Market with deals on delicious desires through February 14th. The floral department's in full bloom, so look for savings on double dozen bunches of roses. In the meat and seafood departments, save on animal welfare certified New York strip steaks and sustainable wild-caught lobster tails to make the night sizzle. Gifts from the wellness and beauty department are always a nice touch. And you have to grab those chocolate-dipped strawberries. Make Whole Foods Market your Valentine's Day destination.
This episode is brought to you by Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. In breaking news, leading scientists worldwide are conducting experiments to determine if Reese's Peanut Butter Cups are the perfect combination of peanut butter and chocolate. However, it appears the study was inconclusive, as the scientists couldn't help but eat all the Reese's. Because when you want something sweet, you can't do better than Reese's. Find Reese's now at a store near you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Penscast Mailbag here at the Skating Penguin Network. I am Garrett Bahana. Joined by me is the fellow contributing writer over at Pensburg.com and one of the co-hosts here at the Skating Penguin Network. It is Robbie Noggle. And joining me as well to complete this trifecta is the second co-host here at the Skating Penguin Network. It is Snail. And fellas, we're putting out another mailbag in our typical regular Tuesday time slot compared to what we were doing last week. But we are back. We still have 11 questions this week to answer. We have questions from two different Brians and a newcomer by the name of Jase, who I don't recognize. I don't know if he has submitted prior questions to the mailbag, but let's get the mailbag underway. Question number 1 will go to Robbie. Question number 2 will go to Snail. I will take question number 3, and we will rotate like that until the mailbag is complete. Question number 1 for you, Robbie, comes from Brian, and it's a very timely topic, talking about unrestricted free agent forward Tomas Tatar. Robbie, straight up, do you think Tomas Tatar will sign with the Pittsburgh Penguins, because it's been confirmed that he has at least had talks with Kyle Dubas?
Based on what we know, I'm going to put the odds here at least 50%, maybe even a bit higher. Rob Rossi chimed in over the weekend, kind of clarifying that he did in fact confirm that Tomas Tatar was talking with the Penguins. But it really could come down to whether or not another team offers him a guaranteed contract, as opposed to maybe the Penguins offering him a PTO for training camp with the guarantee that he is going to be getting a contract, a season contract after that. So, I guess just getting a contract from the team straight out does offer a little more guarantees. But I think based on everything we've heard, I would put it at maybe slightly above 50% of him coming to Pittsburgh. A lot can still happen between now and when these deals get signed. So overall, though, I think that things are trending in a positive direction on the Tomas Tatar front. He kind of they asked him about it. This was a translated interview from a outlet in the Czech Republic where Tomas Tatar is from, and he was kind of like, yeah, I've talked to him, but I don't want to jinx anything. But and Rossi kind of confirmed everything and where it stands. So I think as of right now, I would say that yes, he will be in Pittsburgh. Again, a lot can change between now and when a deal is signed. So fingers crossed. But we talked about this on a past episode. Tatar would be a heck of an addition to this lineup if they can get him in a Penguins jersey, get the money right, because he adds a lot of middle depth of the lineup depth. He can move up and down the roster, and he really, most importantly, helps out that bottom six. Question number 2 from Brian, who is here again to give us some terrible food opinions. Brian says, I got to say this. He has snails back when it comes to pineapple on pizza, but his other food takes are crazy. But he does support wrongly the pineapple on pizza take.
As former question asker here, we got to have each other's back from time to time. So I really appreciate this. I think, I was thinking about this like pineapple gate that we had on last week's podcast. Do you guys, is there a bias maybe because you guys are on the East Coast, right? So like on the East Coast, do you guys take your pizza like way more seriously, you think, than like we do out here on the West Coast?
I would tend to agree with that, but like I have no evidence to back that up. Chicago's known for their pizza. New York is known for their pizza. I mean, Chicago isn't East Coast; it's Midwest. New York is. I would consider New York East Coast, but outside of that, I have no other evidence to say that I take. I mean, I love pizza, so I will defend my pizza toppings until the day I die. But I mean, I can't speak for Robbie and his love for pizza, although I do know he likes pizza. I don't know if I would classify it as taking it more seriously.
I was thinking, maybe is there more Italians on the East Coast? I don't know. I don't have the data on that. But in my mind, I've had this assumption that maybe that the East Coast takes their pizza a little bit more seriously. And when you mentioned Chicago, I can't imagine pineapple on a pizza in Chicago. I feel like they'd run you out of town for that. Anyways, I will move off of this. I appreciate it, Brian, having my back like that. I will defend the holy trinity of spice, a little bit of sweetness, and brine on a slice of pizza. One thing I did notice, you didn't ask a food question this week, and I have accepted the role as the gesture on this podcast when it comes to food takes. That's a role I'm willing to fill. It's like every successful team, they need their superstars that carry the team at times. They need those responsible depth role players that play an integral part in getting dubs. That is me with the food takes. So I'm going to shoot from the hip here, and I'm going to present a food question to Garrett, Robbie, and I also want Brian to add us on Twitter or X or whatever you call it, and let us know what you think. So we all go to the movies from time to time, right? Now that COVID's COVID is not over. I don't want to get into that, but the COVID lockdowns have lifted. People are going back to movie theaters. What are we getting at the movie theaters?
I will go first because my answer will be short and sweet. Maybe I get pop. Maybe maybe I'll spend the money on pop, but given the fact that I'm already spending like $15 on a movie ticket, odds are I'm probably eating out beforehand, and I refuse to spend even more money inside the movie theater. If it's like a 2.5 or 3 hour movie, I'll probably get thirsty, so that's where the pop comes in. But I'm not. Also, another thing regarding movie theaters, I haven't been in a movie theater since 2019, and I rarely go to movie theaters, but I'm not that big of a snack person while I'm watching movies. Like, I'll eat popcorn if you put it in front of me, but some people are getting the chocolate and popcorn and Swedish Fish and Skittles and all that. I don't need all that stuff. That's the last thing I need to put in my body, considering all the other unhealthy stuff that I put in my body. But hey, that's just me. I'm cost effective when I go to the movie theater. Robbie, how do you spend your money at the movie theater?
So I'm basically a traditionalist as well when it comes to movie theater snacks. That is popcorn and a soda. That's basically what I am now. I will say last summer we were traveling on a vacation. We did get a chance to go to an Alamo Draft House. And again, they have like a full menu, and it's a great experience, I will say. I don't have that option around here. And again, draft houses are not that common around here. The closest one to me here in Johnstown, I believe, is like DC, if I remember correctly last time I looked. But no, we are. Yeah, I'm generally a just traditionalist popcorn, soda. Nothing fancy for me. It's just not. It's just. I mean, I paid so much for a movie that the snacks are going to be expensive to begin with, so I stick with just the traditional offerings of popcorn and a soda.
What I'm going to go further here and ask Garrett and Robbie, what kind of sodas do you guys get if you're going to sit through a 2.5 hour or 2 hour movie? What size soda are you getting, and what kind of soda?
I love. See, it's hard now that you put me on the spot like that. The first thing that was going to come out of my mouth is Dr. Pepper. I love Dr. Pepper, and how I'm kind of finicky when it comes to my pop because I like Sprite, but this is wholly unrelated to this conversation. I will only get Sprite from McDonald's because I don't know whether it's rational or irrational, but I feel like Sprite, you can only get the crispest Sprite from the McDonald's soda dispenser. So, but my go-to number one, if it's available, is always Dr. Pepper.
I vary, actually. I don't really have a consistent. I'm mostly Coke, just a standard Coke, but I do love a good Dr. Pepper now and again as well. But those are my two. And if there are some places that have it, some places don't. I'm a huge, I will die on this hill of Barks root beer. And if that is there, that is generally my number one, but not every place has that. But so mostly if I'm having to pick, it's between Coke and Dr. Pepper.
I love a Dr. Pepper as well. If I'm going to the movies, I'm getting popcorn with no butter on it and a Pib Extra every time. Okay.
Yeah.
Nothing too egregious there, right? Everything.
No, everything's good there. I put butter on mine, but that's not. I mean, you're a vegan, so you have to. Yeah, it's a little different for you, but neither here nor there.
It's a little different, but yeah, kind of same thing. Also, AMC Lowe's theaters. I don't know if you guys have I'm assuming you guys have those out there.
Yeah, we have some AMCs around.
So yeah, they have these like little allergen-free chocolate chip cookies that come in a box. I'll get those, a popcorn, and a Pib Extra. So, anyways, Brian, we need you to keep asking these food questions. It causes some turmoil, but it's all for content. So, I need you to ask the hard-hitting food questions with your chest out and with impunity. All right, question 3 from Brian. Having the luck we have with injuries every year, does it concern you with Karlsson's injury history?
I feel like the thing with Karlsson, I mean, you have to take it into consideration every season we're talking about the Penguins because the injury bug, it seems like the Penguins are the most cursed team when it comes to injuries. So, when talking about Erik Karlsson, yeah, he's definitely dealt with the injury bug while in San Jose, but look, I'm still riding that Erik Karlsson high, and I will continue to ride the Karlsson high well into the season. Yeah, he is 33. He's certainly, I think I described him as no spring chicken, but I'm going to ride into this season. I'm going to ride into October, November, December, and I'm not really going to focus on the injuries. I feel like the injuries, they'll pop up from time to time. I know Crosby and Malkin were relatively healthy all throughout the last regular season. So, let's keep hoping and praying that the injury bug stays away and that the Penguins can turn their bad luck into some good luck and get back into the postseason hunt. But for right now, as I sit here on August 14th, no, I don't have any concerns. Erik Karlsson, to me, from his press conferences and whatnot, seems very healthy, very excited, very eager to get into the black and gold. And for the time being, I am going to carry a similar mindset. Question number 4 comes from Brian. This could be a group related question here. It was originally intended for Robbie, but if we want to open it up, we definitely could. If you could buy a concert ticket to any show in history, who would you want to see? So Robbie, I guess we'll start with you.
Queen. That was the first name that popped in my head. They would be at their peak. They would have been fantastic to see live. And I'm a huge Queen fan as well. So it all works out there. I mean, I feel like that ones that you can still get tickets to. I don't really qualify for this answer, but maybe you can pick whoever you want. But no, Queen would be my number one, just because I think they're phenomenal. Again, one of the great British rock bands of all time. Maybe from a cultural aspect, just seeing the Beatles live would have been pretty astonishing. I mean, just if you watch videos of them back in the 60s and 70s, the cultural mania that they caused would have been absolutely just incredible to see in person. So those would probably be my two. There's artists playing today that I'd love to see in concert, but I figure as long as I can still get a chance to see them, I'll hold off on mentioning them. But I'll pass it on to you guys then, because there's plenty of answers here, depending all on your taste in music. So go ahead.
So I was kind of thinking about this as Robbie was talking, and I've actually seen like most of the bands on my like quote unquote bucket list, I guess, if you want to call it that. I've actually been fortunate enough to score tickets or go to music festivals where I've seen some of the bigger, more mainstream acts, and then also been able to Seattle's a pretty good spot for live music. A lot of bands, small and large, tour out here. So I've actually managed to nab tickets and see some of the smaller bands that I love. But just to answer this question, there is a band I actually never have seen that they are on an indefinite hiatus, and they are called Title Fight. They're actually from Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. I've seen a reincarnation of them. It's like got a couple of the members in it. They're in a band now called Glitterer. So I've seen them. But yeah, it would have to be Title Fight. They're probably my favorite band. And I actually, they kind of disbanded, before I was ever really able to get a ticket to them out here.
For me, as we'll close up the conversation on this question. Robbie mentioned the Beatles, and I think for all the reasons he mentioned, the Beatles would be the same reason why. I mean, I love various genres. I have made my musical tastes known on this podcast before. I love a good guitar-centric sound and a guitar-centric band. And I'm not saying the Beatles relied solely on the guitar, but more so from a cultural aspect, like Robbie was describing, Beatlemania in its height when they came over to America in the early to mid 60s, that would have been something to witness firsthand, that I'd love to get a time machine and just go back. I was having a conversation with my coworker a couple of days ago talking about Taylor Swift. You know, what we're seeing now with Taylor Swift and the money that she's generating for these local economies, for all of these massive stadium shows that she's doing. I said it's Beatles-esque what she is able to do, the audience that she is able to cultivate wherever she goes on this planet. And, you know, you could make the argument that we haven't seen something like this in the music industry since the Beatles and Beatlemania. But anyway, I digress from that. I'm no musical historian. I just thought I'd offer that up. But yeah, definitely for me, it would be the Beatles. And yeah, that's kind of where, if I had a time machine, I'd go back and see them.
Question number 5 from Brian. We're shifting back to Snell here. Do you guys have any thoughts on the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, the Q, as it's better known, banning fighting starting this upcoming season?
Yeah, I do have some thoughts on this, and I feel like it could be fortunate, it could be unfortunate that I am posed with this question, because sometimes regarding the whole fighting, not only in juniors but in the NHL, I can become old man yelling at clouds. But I'll keep it short and sweet. So essentially, like, of course this was coming. I think at some point, I think it's going to start in the junior ranks, and whether we see it in the NHL at some point, I think the jury's still out on that. But I must emphasize, I think that there is a place in hockey for fighting. You can call me a dinosaur if you want. I still believe there's a place for it in the game. I'll never be convinced otherwise. Let's just say that. It's such a fast and high impact sport. There's always going to be dirty players or rats that sort of toe that line out there running around with intent to injure. I just think that the game needs to be able to police itself. It's a part of hockey. It displays this quality of competition that I feel is maybe sort of fading a little bit in this day and age, and that would be heart. I think to be a great hockey player, you must embrace like all that kind of comes with hockey, and that includes physicality. And now physicality can mean a couple of things. And now I'm saying, when I say physicality, I don't necessarily mean that they have to fight, but they have to embrace that there is a price to pay for certain actions. It's called answering the bell. We've all heard it. Again, just embracing all that comes with hockey. I feel like kids these days, they love scoring the goals and hitting the gwitty to Selly. But hear me out. Sometimes when I'm watching these games, I feel like, I could fire some shots at maybe some players or some other teams that kind of have these types of players on them, but I won't. It feels like I'm watching like these athletes play hockey, and there's a difference between athletes who play hockey and a hockey player. And when I say a hockey player, that's somebody that really embraces the game of hockey and all that comes with it in all of its aspects. So back to your question, my thoughts are, again, I'm not really super surprised. I think one of the big things that has kind of led to this decision in the queue, for me, it's just the age. You have 16-year-olds all the way up to 20, and I believe you can be 21, if I'm not mistaken. You guys can correct me on that, but I think it's 16 to 20. The difference between a 16-year-old and a 20 or a 21-year-old, that's pretty big. And I know it's the same, and it's sort of the same in the dub and in the OHL, but that's like you could have a kid fighting somebody who's already filled out into their frame, and and they look more like a man, So I think that it's just not safe. It's a little bit too young. So I can see it from that angle as to why they made that decision. Just to touch lightly, so in the NCAA, we know that there's like not really fighting. They wear full cages. They get a 5-minute misconduct and then a match penalty as well for fighting. In the OHL, I believe they have a rule where if they fight a certain amount of times in a season, they get suspended. And actually, just recently, the WHL commissioner he came out with a statement following the Q's announcement for this banning of fighting, and he flat out said that they will not be changing their fighting policy. So I don't think this is something that we're going to see kind of have a domino effect, but it's definitely one of the first shoes to drop, and they're taking into consideration probably the CTE and just the overall, like, you don't really need 16-year-old kids having to go out there and worry about anything other than hockey. So those are my takes. I would be curious for either of you, if you have an opinion, I would invite you to chime in on what you think about this.
Why take one vacation with the family when you could take all of them? With Royal Caribbean, you don't just go to the beach. You visit a private island and race down the tallest water slide in North America. You don't just go for a road trip. You ATV and zip line through the jungle. You don't just go somewhere new. You rappel down waterfalls and discover ancient temples. Because this isn't just any vacation. This is all the vacations. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
The Love Affair event is on at Whole Foods Market with deals on delicious desires through February 14th. The floral department's in full bloom, so look for savings on double dozen bunches of roses. In the meat and seafood departments, save on animal welfare certified New York strip steaks and sustainable wild-caught lobster tails to make the night sizzle. Gifts from the wellness and beauty department are always a nice touch. And you have to grab those chocolate-dipped strawberries. Make Whole Foods Market your Valentine's Day destination.
This episode is brought to you by Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. In breaking news, leading scientists worldwide are conducting experiments to determine if Reese's Peanut Butter Cups are the perfect combination of peanut butter and chocolate. However, it appears the study was inconclusive, as the scientists couldn't help but eat all the Reese's. Because when you want something sweet, you can't do better than Reese's. Find Reese's now at a store near you.
I think it's the right move. My opinion has always been I'm not tuning into a hockey game to watch, whether it's a teenager or a grown man. I'm not tuning in for a Suedo boxing match on ice. That's never what I tuned in to watch the sport for. And that's really the same mentality that I'll carry now. I know a lot of older people will say that the violence aspect of hockey and the fighting is part of what differentiates itself from the NFL, MLB, NBA, whatever. you win and lose hockey games based on goals scored, not punches thrown. That's the attitude that I've held really for as long as I've been watching the game. I don't care for fighting. I think it's meaningless really at this point. This isn't the 1980s anymore. We know more about CTE and head injuries and concussions. Call me overprotective or call me woke or whatever. I don't care what you call me. But even if we have differing opinions on this podcast, I mean, I will respect your opinion on fighting, whether you like it or not. But yeah, that's just how I view it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have any general opinion on it. I think at the end of the day, it is kind of going by the wayside anyway. You don't see it much in the NHL anymore outside of the few rare, ever rare instances. And I mean, the kids, I mean, do you need them bashing themselves in the head at this age, at between the ages like 15 and 18? Probably not. I mean, people made a big stink about a lot of youth soccer leagues here in the United States ban heading to a certain age. There was a huge uproar about that. Now nobody cares. It hasn't changed. Overall, the ability to just do it once they got older and up through the ranks. So, I mean, overall, I think they're going to complain about it now, but in 2 to 3 years, you'll completely forget about it and you won't even notice it.
Fair enough. Like Garrett said, I think we all got some differing opinions, but it's all respect here. So yeah, those are kind of the general thoughts on the Q banning the fighting. I'm going to go to question 6 here from Brian. If you could add one chain restaurant to your area, what would it be? Brian loves Shake Shack.
So where I'm located, where I live, is a tiny, tiny, tiny town in the it's called the Mon Valley area, about 45 minutes south of Pittsburgh, and it's a pretty much what you would think of as a pretty rural area. There's one restaurant that I want within like a 10 to 15 minute drive from my house, and it's Chick-fil-A. There's a Chick-fil-A probably within 25-30 minutes of where I live, maybe 20 minutes depending on if you're speeding or not. But if anyone listening to this podcast is familiar with the Mon Valley and you're familiar with Charleroi, Belle Vernon, that area, Monessen, Monongahela, if we could get a Chick-fil-A like in Belle Vernon, that would be maybe like replace the Long John Silver's. Nobody eats at Long John Silver's anymore. Replace that with a Chick-fil-A, and that would be incredibly hazardous to my health because I would just devour all the chicken in that restaurant. But that would be my go-to chain restaurant to have in my locale. Robbie, what about you?
Yeah, I kind of got to agree with the Chick-fil-A too. Again, I live in a smaller town where we don't have – I mean, we have a decent amount of chain restaurants, but it's mostly your McDonald's, Burger King, Taco Bell, your big name ones. We are getting a Chipotle that's being currently built right now, so that's exciting. But I stand on the opinion that Chipotle is slightly overrated, maybe – not slightly, maybe just overrated.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that like we have authentic Mexican places here in town that I can get a much better burrito at for much better burrito, chips, and queso for a much like, if not cheaper, right around the same price that I'd rather spend my money on. And if I'm really desperate for a fast food burrito, I will put at least in terms of quality, I will put Sheetz Mexican burrito up there with just about anyone. I think it is just as good. I want to say it might still be for what you get from Sheetz and for Snail. Sheetz is like a big gas station chain on the East Coast, but it's primarily based out of Western Pennsylvania. They do like touchscreen fast food, like you go in and order, but I would put theirs up. It's completely acceptable, and I just find Chipotle to be it's acceptable food. I just don't think it's worth the price. I would much rather spend my money at an authentic Mexican place to get like a real burrito that has real ingredients, and it's just in my opinion better. So, but if I had to pick, I'd say Chick-fil-A. I am a Chick-fil-A stan. I love their grilled chicken. It is absolutely phenomenal. That is what I always get. I know a lot of people probably just get their standard chicken sandwich breaded. I love their grill. I love grilled chicken to begin with, but their grilled chicken is phenomenal. So, yeah, I would say Chick-fil-A if I had to pick one.
Sorry, Brian, you did ask a food question this week. If I could add one chain restaurant to my area, I'm curious what you guys know about A&W, the establishment.
I've heard of it. Like, I've seen them before. I've never eaten at one, though.
Yeah, me neither.
Okay, so you got to hear me out here. So there's two A&Ws, and I actually, not a big deal, had a quick back and forth with NHL analyst and host Kevin Weeks. He recently posted a photo of him getting a bag of A&W, what I presume to be burgers and fries in there. And we have A&W over here in the States, and it's not good. There's not a lot of them, and it's for good reason. They suck here. But if I could have one chain restaurant in my area, I want the Canadian A&W. There's an A&W on the Sea to Sky Highway in BC over here on the west coast, up in Canada, and whenever I would go across the border, we stopped there kind of ritually, and there's just something different about it. You go in there, they give you, if you're getting a drink, they give it to you in a frosted, frozen, icy mug, whether you're getting their root beer or another beverage of your choice. And they actually have, a couple vegan options on their menu. Not great. I'm not going to fast food establishments for my health. I'm going there for convenience and that quick serotonin boost that comes with all that sodium. So I would add A&W, but the Canadian one.
All right, question number 7 goes to Robbie. This comes from Brian. I'd like to get your guys' thoughts on recent reports about if Austin Matthews hits free agency, that he may realign himself with Kyle Dubas. If that somehow happens, and Brian just says, ... wow.
I mean, he pulled off Karlsson. I don't know how he could do it. I mean, it would take obviously not bringing Jake Gensel back would be the first bit of needs to happen there. And then a pay decrease from Matthews himself. I mean, impossible. I mean, we thought Erik Karlsson was impossible too, like less than 6 months ago. And now he's a Pittsburgh Penguin. So don't say anything's impossible, but it would take an awful lot of creativity to make it happen in Pittsburgh. There would have to be trades going out where the return is basically picks, whatever it is. Now, again, if you get Gensel off the books, again, this would be without Gensel coming back, and I mean Jeff Carter coming off the books as well. But I just don't see where it's happening. I guess you could feasibly re-sign Jake Gensel and trade Rickard Rakell, but it would take a lot of ingenuity and creativity. So you never say never. I just don't. At the end of the day, I don't think he's leaving Toronto unless he gets completely blown away by an offer somewhere else. Toronto would be absolutely stupid to let that happen. I think they have to do everything they can to sign him. But hey, if it happens, that's fantastic. It's just, best of luck making that work. And he would be obviously awesome in this lineup. The money right now doesn't work, but we'll see how it goes. You never say never. Question number 8. This one is specifically directed towards Snail. It's from Brian. He said, Snail, have you ever been to Pittsburgh? If not, is that something you wish to do?
Have not been to Pittsburgh yet. In fact, I've never even touched down on the East Coast. I've been quite a few places in this country and never touched down there. I've skipped right over to Europe. But yeah, I do intend on visiting Pittsburgh. It's on my bucket list. I have family in Pittsburgh, not in Pittsburgh. I have family in Pennsylvania, not in Pittsburgh. They've come out here to visit us, but I've never been over there in Birdsboro, Pennsylvania. I think since COVID, the idea of travel just hasn't really been on my radar. I've kind of become like quite the homebody actually since COVID. But my partner and I both want to check out the East Coast, and selfishly, I have Pittsburgh, circled Would love to go over there. Maybe meet my co-hosts, holler yins at each other, have a few yinglings, maybe catch a game. What do you guys say?
No, thank you. I want nothing to do with you.
But yeah, no, I do have I have Pittsburgh circled on my bucket list of places to go, and hope to make that happen sooner than later. Let's see. Let's go question 9 here. If this is from Brian, but I believe this is from a different Brian. This is from Brian the Lion. He would be interested in hearing what each of our favorite hobbies is, non-Penguin related.
All right, we got Brian's, Lions, and Bears. Oh my. We'll start with, well, I guess this was my question, and then we'll go around the table again. What are my hobbies? Well, quite simply, I love playing video games. I am a 25-year-old geek, and I spend my free time when I'm not working or recording podcasts or writing. I am playing either my PlayStation or my PC. That's what I'm doing. I'm not really, as I've gotten older, I've found myself watching less and less TV and movies. I love Star Wars, so I'm a big Star Wars nerd. So I basically consume any sort of Star Wars content on TV, in the theater, or Disney Plus. But yeah, I think I'm relatively simple when it comes to non-hockey or non-Penguins related things I like to do. Just sit me down in front of a TV with a PlayStation, and I could go for 8 to 10 hours a day. But that's basically all I like to do. I guess we'll shift it over to Robbie, and then we'll shift it over to Snail.
Very similar to Garrett with the video games. I do enjoy gaming. Occasionally, I get in the mood for. This is more recent. This is more in like the last couple of years. Building massive Lego sets, and we're talking like not like your small ones that you give little kids, but like the major big ones. Actually, earlier this year, I completed the Roman Colosseum, which was at one point their biggest set. It is no longer. It's like their second or third biggest set now. I've completed both. They have 2 Friends, the show Friends scenes from that show. My brother has the Titanic, which is one of their massive ones as well. So I enjoy that. I'll be buying hopefully a new one here before the end of the year to work on over Christmas when I'm off work. But yeah, non-Penguins related. It's basically video games, doing some Legos, and watching other sports, I guess, if that counts as well. I'm a big sports guy, and I love tuning in to see what else is going on either around the United States or even the rest of the world as well. So. It's
I'm 31 now, and I've been skateboarding since I was like 13, going on 14. I dedicated a large portion of my youth to it. That's, I make a point to do it every week, weather permitting. So, I mean, skateboarding, I also, I like to play video games as well. You can catch me on Shell or playing Fortnite. I like going. I'll say I still like going to shows. Especially I'm a little more selective on who I like to go see when they come through town. Cooking. I got 4 pets that take a lot of time and energy at home, so that's what I'm doing.
All right, question number 10. I believe this goes to Robbie, if the order is still correct. Question number 10 will go back to OG Brian. There are a lot of big names potentially becoming free agents after this upcoming season. Other than keeping Drake Gensel, is there 1 or 2 potential names you'd like to see in Pittsburgh in 2024?
Only the good players.
Exactly. That's the perfect one.
So I'm going to take Austin Matthews out of this equation because, again, we just talked about him.
He's already coming.
Yeah, he's actually already, like, he has the contract's been drawn up. He's just going to play out this year in Toronto and then come to Pittsburgh. Some names just to look at, like Steven Stamkos, never leaving Toronto or Tampa Bay. Elias Pettersson, Vancouver will sign him. William Nylander's an interesting one. Maybe rehooking up with Dubas in Pittsburgh. So an interesting name, but more maybe rational choices here. The guys that can help out in different parts of the lineup. Tyler Bertuzzi only signed a 1-year deal. I know he was talked about this past offseason as possibly an option for the Penguins. That didn't happen, but hey, a 1-year deal, and depending on how it works in Toronto, maybe he doesn't perform up to expectations and he comes in a little cheaper next year. Or if not, the Penguins just clear out some space and get him. Jonathan Marchessault is a unrestricted free agent next summer. Noah Hannafin, his name bounced around a couple times to the Penguins this year. I think he's going to be well priced out of the Penguins range. But like I said before, never say never. Just looking at some other names here real quick that could help out the Penguins. Maybe like a Victor Arvidsson, who is currently with the Los Angeles Kings but will be an unrestricted free agent next year. Again, a lot's going to depend all on what the Penguins need next year, where everything stands. At the very least, you're going to have that top four on the blue line is likely going to be intact next year. So you have Letang, Karlsson, Graves, and Pettersson for an extended period of time. And depending on how Pierre-Olivier Joseph works out, maybe they extend him and keep him in Pittsburgh a little longer term. So I think really you're looking mostly at forwards, maybe like an Adam Henrique if he still has anything left in the tank. He was talked about as a possible trade option for the Penguins last year. And a name that I've always been interested that how he would fit in Pittsburgh, Jacob Vrana, who used to play for the Capitals and has kind of bounced around a little since then. He's a fast player. He doesn't score a ton, but in that bottom six, I think he could definitely give you some depth. So yeah, a bunch of names sitting out there for next year outside of like the obvious blockbusters, Matthews, Pettersson, Nylander. Again, not sold to any of those guys are going to leave their current teams, especially guys like Stamkos. Stamkos isn't leaving Toronto. He's the captain, or Tampa Bay. He's the captain. He'll be 35 by the time he's a free agent. He's not going anywhere. Pettersson probably not going anywhere. But hey, never say never with any of them guys. So there's going to be plenty of options out there to retool and take another run next year. Last but not least, question number 11 comes from Jase, who we believe is this is his first time contributing to the Penscast. So, Jase, we thank you for that. His question, which will go to Snell to wrap us up here. What do you believe has been the most underrated move Kyle Dubas has made this offseason?
The most underrated move by Dubas, I kind of toiled with this a little bit, and I think maybe getting Drew O'Connor. We talk about him. I feel like, or maybe it's just me. I feel like I talk about him a lot on here, and I wanted to kind of move away from that. Yes, DOC is a potentially a promising young player, and they got him at a pretty fair contract. I think it was like 900,000 something. That could be the underrated move. Another one I wanted to bring up was they brought back, I believe they brought back Radim Zohorna. Did they not?
Yes.
Okay, so this Zohorna guy, I really liked him. Scored on his very first shot. I think he's like 6'6", super fast, good hands. I didn't want to see this guy go. I was like, I think this guy needs a chance. He could have been perfect on like a scoring third line, I thought. The only thing is he hasn't really gotten an extended look in the NHL by the Penguins or I think he's played for Toronto as well as Calgary. Getting him back, I think he could be a solid depth piece. Maybe keep an eye out for Zohorna to get back in the lineup in a depth role. As far as that goes, as far as your question, Jase, those are the two that kind of came to mind and I thought were maybe worth mentioning. It's kind of, with the EK trade, everything's kind of just cast in the shadows from that. So I hope that kind of answers your question. I'd be curious to you guys. Do you guys have one that came to mind more so than DOC or Zohorna?
Underrated. He signed a lot of third, fourth line guys. He really reconstructed the entire bottom six, and I think the bottom six there will be a lot more of an emphasis on defense this season. But I can't sit here and tell you that I'm an expert on Andreas Johansson or Lars Eller or Matt Nieto or those kinds of players. there really weren't, I mean, I don't know, I could be wrong. There really wasn't an underrated move that Kyle Dubas had to make. The big splash was not underrated. Erik Karlsson is not underrated. What else? He signed Tristan Jarry. I mean, that was probably the best bet you were going to get on the goaltending market. So as far as underrated goes, you know what? Come back to me in about 2 or 3 months and ask that question again, and maybe I will have a better, more defined answer for you.
Maybe it's a Chari, actually. You know, that's a dude who plays the right way, and he's going to be probably a fourth line center. I think he was one of the first moves that Dubas made, and we all know that I think Dubas signed him at the deadline last season, or not signed him, traded for him, and then signed him this off season. I think that guy will be a key piece, you know, on the penalty kill. But like Garrett said, you know, check in a few months, and I think it'll be more so clear as to who the underrated signing will be.
Alrighty, a shorter mailbag this week, 11 questions, but we got through them all thanks to both Robbie and Snail for their contributions this week. If you would like to contribute to further editions of the mailbag here at the Skating Penguin Network, you can do so by following us on Twitter or X or whatever it'll be called this time next week. We are at Penguins FFSN on Twitter, X, or whatever it is, and every week we will send out a post asking for your questions in these mailbag episodes. So thank you again to Jase, who I believe, like Robbie said, was a new question asker this week. Thank you to Brian. Thank you to Brian the Lion, 2 different Brians this week making up the mailbag. But for Snail and Robbie Noggle, I have been Garrett Bahana. Thank you so much for listening to the Skating Penguin Network, and we will talk to all of you again this time next week.